I used to think friendship was the one unchangeable thing in my life, until I got that termination email on a Monday morning from the person I'd called family for 12 years. She couldn't look me in the eye when she signed that decision. But today, I'm sitting in my own office with my company logo etched on glass walls. Latest valuation, $3 million. And no, I haven't forgiven her. My name is Claire Halden, and 3 years ago, I believed in loyalty the way other people believe in gravity, something so fundamental it couldn't possibly fail you. I'm staring at my reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows of my Denver office, watching the city wake up below. The morning light catches the Foster Ed logo behind me, casting its shadow across the hardwood floor. $3 million. That's what the venture capitalists valued my company at last week. Not bad for someone who was eating ramen noodles in a studio apartment just 24 months ago. My phone buzzes. Another interview request. TechCrunch wants to feature our remarkable growth story. I almost laugh. They have no idea how remarkable it really is. The coffee maker hisses in the corner. The same expensive Italian model Rebecca and I used to joke we'd buy when Brightmind made it big. She got hers 2 years ago. I got mine last month. The difference is, I paid for mine with money I earned building something from nothing, not by stabbing someone in the back. I trace my finger along the edge of my desk. Solid walnut, custom made. Everything in this office was chosen deliberately, piece by piece, the opposite of how I'd fumbled through those first months after the betrayal. Back then, I couldn't even choose which coffee shop to work from without second-guessing myself. You're in early again. My assistant, Marcus, pokes his head through the door. He's 25, brilliant, and reminds me of myself before I learned that brilliance alone doesn't protect you from betrayal. Big day, I tell him. The Education Summit panel is this afternoon. He grins. The one where you're speaking alongside? Yes. I cut him off. I don't need to hear her name this morning. Not yet. Marcus knows the story. Everyone in Denver's startup scene knows some version of it. How Claire Halden and Rebecca Quinn built Brightmind from a dorm room idea into a multi-million-dollar edtech platform. How they were the golden duo. The female founders everyone wanted to invest in. How it all fell apart. What they don't know is the real story. The 12 years of inside jokes, shared apartments, and 3 a.m. strategy sessions. The way Rebecca held my hair back when I got food poisoning at our first investor pitch. How I was the one who talked her off the ledge when her father said she was wasting her Stanford education on a silly startup dream. They don't know about the Tuesday nights we'd sprawl on her couch, drinking cheap wine and mapping out our empire. We're going to change education, she'd say, her eyes bright with possibility. You and me, Claire, nobody can stop us. She was half right. We did change education, and nobody could stop us, except each other. I pull up my presentation for the panel, the one where I'll sit 3 feet away from the woman who tried to erase me from the story we wrote together. My slides are clean, professional, devastating in their simplicity. Each metric, each growth chart, each testimonial from the thousands of young people using Foster Ed to build careers outside traditional education. It's all evidence of what I built from the ashes of what she burned down. The irony isn't lost on me. Brightmind helps students succeed in traditional education systems. Foster Ed helps the ones those systems leave behind. We're competitors now, in the most personal way possible. I close my laptop and walk to the window again. Somewhere in this city, Rebecca is probably doing the same thing. Preparing for an afternoon where we'll pretend to be cordial professionals who just happen to take different paths. The moderator will ask about female friendship and entrepreneurship, and we'll both smile and give carefully rehearsed answers about supporting other women in tech. What we won't talk about is the email that arrived at 6:47 a.m. on a Monday morning, with the subject line, Organizational Restructuring. How my access badge stopped working before I even finished reading it. How security watched me pack my desk into a cardboard box while my best friend stayed locked in her office, refusing to answer my calls. But that's a story for another day. Today is about showing up, Today is about sitting on that stage with perfect posture and letting success be my microphone. I straighten my blazer, the designer one I bought with my first real foster ed profit, and head for the door. It's time to stop looking backward. After all, the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served at a 500 per plate education technology summit, with your former best friend watching from the same stage as you accept applause for the company she said would never work. Game on. Rebecca, game fucking on. The University of Colorado at Boulder, 2012. That's where it all started, in a cramped dorm room that smelled like burnt popcorn and ambition. You're overthinking it, Rebecca said, sprawled across my twin bed with her laptop balanced on her stomach. Her blonde hair was tied in that messy bun she always wore during finals week. The interface needs to be simpler. Think Instagram. But for homework, I was hunched over my desk, surrounded by empty energy drink cans and color-coded notebooks. Instagram doesn't help you track assignment deadlines or connect with study groups, I argued, pushing my glasses up my nose. We need more functionality. You always need more functionality. She laughed, throwing a pillow at me. That's why I love you. You're the brain, I'm the charm. It was our running joke, but like most jokes, it held a grain of truth. I was the one who stayed up until 4 a.m. debugging code and creating project roadmaps. Rebecca was the one who could walk into a room and make everyone believe in our vision within 5 minutes. We were perfect together. Or so I thought. By senior year, we had a prototype and a business plan. After graduation, we moved to Denver, the rising star of tech cities, more affordable than Silicon Valley, but buzzing with the same energy. Our first apartment was a 2-bedroom in Capitol Hill, $1,200 a month split between us. We converted the living room into an office, working side by side on folding tables from Walmart. Remember when we couldn't afford anything but pasta? Rebecca loved to tell this story at investor meetings. Claire calculated exactly how many nutrients we could get for under $5 a day. She had a spreadsheet and everything. The investors always laughed. I laughed too. Back then, it was our origin story, 2 girls from the Midwest taking on the education establishment with nothing but determination and a shared Netflix password. Brightmind got its first seed funding in 2014, $200,000 from an angel investor who Rebecca charmed at a coffee shop. I'll never forget the way she screamed when the wire transfer hit our account. We danced around our makeshift office, crying and laughing, ordering Chinese food for the first time in months. We did it, Claire! She grabbed my hands, spinning me around. We fucking did it. You did it, I corrected her. I just made the slides. Stop that. Her green eyes were serious suddenly. We're partners. 50-50, remember? Your brain, my charm, our company. Partners. The word felt like a promise then. As Brightmind grew, so did our friendship. We were in the trenches together, pulling all-nighters before product launches, celebrating each new school district that adopted our platform, comforting each other through failed relationships and family dramas. When my dad had his heart attack in 2016, Rebecca drove me to the airport at 3 a.m. and managed the entire company for 2 weeks while I sat in a Nebraska hospital room. When her engagement fell apart 6 months later, I let her sob on my shoulder until my shirt was soaked through, then took her to Vegas for a weekend of terrible decisions and healing laughter. We weren't just business partners or best friends. We were sisters by choice, bound by something stronger than blood, shared dreams, and mutual survival. By 2019, Brightmind had 50 employees and a $10 million valuation. We'd moved into real offices in downtown Denver, with exposed brick walls and a kitchen stocked with kombucha. Rebecca's office was next to mine, connected by a door we never closed. Can you believe this? She'd pop her head in at random moments, grinning like we were still those college kids with a crazy idea. We have employees, Claire, with health insurance. I believed it. I believed in us, in her, in the future we were building together. Even when the new investors started appearing, smooth-talking men in expensive suits who whispered in Rebecca's ear during board meetings. Even when she started having strategic lunches she didn't invite me to. You're being paranoid, she said when I asked about it. We were at our favorite bar in Lodo, sharing truffle fries like always. They're just helping me understand the financial side better. You know I'm terrible with numbers. That's what you have me for, I reminded her. Exactly. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You and me, Claire, nobody can come between us. 2 months later, she fired me. Looking back, I can see the signs I missed. The way she started CCing the new board members on emails that used to be just between us, how she suddenly cared about my professional development and suggested I might be happier in a more specialized role. The afternoon I found her in my office, looking through my files, claiming she was just looking for that old pitch deck. But when you love someone, really love them, you explain away the red flags, you tell yourself you're imagining things, you trust, because that's what partners do. Right up until the moment they prove you wrong. Monday, October 21st, 2019. 6:47 a.m. I was at my kitchen table, coffee steaming beside my laptop. When the email arrived, the subject line seemed innocuous enough. Organizational restructuring, action required, from HR Brightmind Innovations. CC Arquina Brightmind Innovations. Board of Directors, Brightmind Innovations. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. Rebecca never used her formal email signature with me. Never. Dear Ms. Holden, following a comprehensive strategic review conducted by the Board of Directors and Executive Leadership Team, Brightmind Innovations will be implementing an organizational restructuring effective immediately. We regret to inform you that your position as Chief Operations Officer has been eliminated. This decision is not a reflection of your performance, but rather a necessary step in aligning our organizational structure with our strategic objectives. The words blurred. My hands shook so violently I knocked over my coffee, watching the dark liquid spread across my table, dripping onto the floor. I didn't move to clean it up. Eliminated, not reassigned, not restructured, eliminated. I called Rebecca immediately, straight to voicemail, called again, and again. On the 4th try, I realized she'd blocked my number. My keycard didn't work when I arrived at the office. Of course it didn't. Tom from security, who I'd shared donuts with every Friday for 3 years, couldn't meet my eyes. I'm sorry, Claire, he mumbled, handing me a cardboard box. I have to escort you to your office. You have 30 minutes. 30 minutes to pack up 6 years of my life. I moved through the motions like a zombie, pulling awards off the wall, emptying drawers full of protein bars and stress balls, carefully wrapping the succulent Rebecca had given me for our 5th anniversary in business. This little guy is like us, she'd said then, presenting it with a bow. Tough, adaptable, impossible to kill. The bitter irony wasn't lost on me as I placed it in the box. Employees scattered when they saw me coming, diving into cubicles and suddenly remembering urgent phone calls. Only Samantha from product development had the courage to approach. This is bullshit, she whispered, tears in her eyes. Everyone knows this is bullshit. But knowing and doing something about it were different things. They all had mortgages, families, student loans. I understood. I'd have done the same. Rebecca's office door remained closed, blinds drawn. But I could see her shadow moving inside, pacing. For one wild moment, I considered kicking the door down, demanding an explanation. Instead, I left a sticky note on her door. 12 years, Becca. You owed me a conversation. The security footage probably shows me crying in the elevator. It definitely shows me vomiting in the parking garage. My body finally processing what my mind couldn't accept. The next days passed in a blur of humiliation and rage. I learned the full scope of my erasure through LinkedIn updates and TechCrunch articles. Bright Mind Streamlines, Leadership Structure for Next Phase of Growth. My name appeared once, in the final paragraph, as a departing executive. No mention of co-founding. No acknowledgement of the 60-hour weeks, the mortgage I'd taken on my condo to keep us afloat during the lean months. The 3 years I'd worked without a salary. Former colleagues went dark. My calls went unanswered, texts unread. The startup community is small and gossip travels fast. Nobody wanted to be associated with whatever I'd done to deserve this. But I hadn't done anything. That was the worst part. Through a former employee who still had access to company Slack, I learned the truth. Rebecca and the board had been planning this for months. They'd brought in consultants to document how the company could function without me, slowly transitioning my responsibilities to others under the guise of delegation and empowering team leaders. The new investor group, led by a Silicon Valley firm with a reputation for hostile takeovers, had made it clear they wanted a leaner cap table. My 35% equity stake was a problem. Rebecca's solution was elegant in its cruelty: eliminate my position, trigger the bad leaver clause in our operating agreement, and force me to sell my shares back at a fraction of their value. She fought for you, the employee told me over encrypted messages. At first, but they offered her full control and a clear path to IPO. After that, 12 years of friendship was worth less than a corner office with a view. I found myself parked outside our old apartment building at 2 a.m., staring up at the windows where we'd dreamed this whole thing into existence. My phone showed 17 unread messages from my mom, all variations of, "Honey, what happened?" I couldn't tell her. Couldn't form the words to explain that the person I trusted most in the world had performed a corporate execution with surgical precision. The local startup community buzzed with speculation. Some said I'd been caught embezzling. Others whispered about a romantic entanglement gone wrong. Rebecca, meanwhile, posted inspirational quotes on LinkedIn about difficult decisions and growing through challenges. She never said my name, not once. It was like I'd been deleted from history. A glitch in the code corrected. But the universe has a sense of humor. While packing up my home office, I found an old notebook from 2016. Inside, sketched in my terrible handwriting, was the business plan Rebecca had convinced me to abandon. Foster Ed, bridging the gap for non-traditional learners. Too niche, she'd said then. Too complicated. Investors won't understand it. I stared at those pages, coffee-stained and forgotten, and felt something shift inside me. Not healing, that would take time, but something else. Purpose? The first month was the worst. I'd wake up at 5:30 a.m. like clockwork, shower, dress in my work clothes, then remember I had nowhere to go. The muscle memory of 6 years doesn't disappear overnight. Neither does the shame of explaining to your landlord why next month's rent might be late. My severance package was insulting. 2 months' pay for 6 years of building a company from scratch. The forced buyback of my equity shares at book value netted me $47,000. 35% of a company valued at $10 million, reduced to less than what some people spend on a car. I spent most days in bed, laptop balanced on my chest, scrolling through LinkedIn and watching my former life continue without me. Brightmind announced a new partnership with Denver Public Schools. Rebecca was featured in Forbes' 30 Under 30 list. The article called her a visionary solo founder who bootstrapped her way to success. Solo founder. The words burned like acid in my throat. My mom flew in from Omaha, took one look at the empty wine bottles and unwashed dishes, and went into crisis mode. "You need to shower," she said, pulling open my curtains. "And eat something that isn't cereal." "I'm fine." I lied from under my blanket fortress. "You're not fine. You're depressed. There's a difference between grieving and giving up." She was right, but I wasn't ready to hear it. Not yet. The nights were worse than the days. I'd lie awake replaying every conversation, searching for the moment it all went wrong. Was it when I pushed back on the Series B terms? When I questioned the new board member's strategy? Or was it earlier, some fundamental flaw in me that Rebecca had seen from the beginning? I found myself stalking her Instagram at 3 a.m., torturing myself with photos of company parties I wasn't invited to, product launches I hadn't worked on. She looked happy, radiant, even, as if removing me from her life had lifted some terrible burden. One particularly bad night, I drafted an email to her personal account, the one I knew she still checked. 3,000 words of pain and fury and desperate questions. I deleted it unsent, then wrote another. Delete. Another. Delete. What was the point? She'd made her choice. Week 3, I discovered I was broke. Not poor. Broke. The mortgage on my overpriced Denver condo. The car payment on the Tesla I'd bought to celebrate our Series A. The student loans I deferred during our no-salary years, it all came crashing down at once. My savings evaporated like morning mist. I sold the Tesla first, taking a massive loss. Then the designer furniture, piece by piece, watching strangers from Craigslist haul away the physical evidence of my success. The ergonomic desk chair I'd splurged on. The standing desk where I'd written code until my eyes burned. The coffee table where Rebecca and I had spread out our first business plan. This is temporary, I told myself, sitting on my floor eating takeout from the one place that still delivered to my building. This is temporary. But temporary felt pretty fucking permanent at 2 a.m. I started applying for jobs, COO positions at other startups, product management roles, anything that matched my skills. The rejections were swift and uniform. We've decided to move forward with other candidates. Translation: we heard what happened at Brightmind, and we're not touching that drama. One recruiter was honest enough to tell me the truth. Look, Claire, you're talented. But Rebecca Quinn is a rising star in this city. Nobody wants to be on her bad side. Maybe try looking outside Colorado. Leave Denver, the city where I'd built my life, my network, my dreams. The thought made me physically ill, but not as ill as what I found next. While cleaning out my closet, preparing to sell more things I couldn't afford to keep, I found a box of old documents, contracts, meeting notes, early sketches of Brightmind's architecture, and there, buried at the bottom, was a folder labeled Foster Ed 2016. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were 50 pages of detailed planning, market research, user personas, revenue projections. My idea. My vision for helping kids who fell through the cracks of traditional education. The project Rebecca had killed. The market's not ready, she'd said. Investors want mainstream solutions, not niche problems. Trust me on this. I'd trusted her. God, I'd trusted her with everything. I spread the pages across my empty living room floor, really looking at them for the first time in 3 years. The business model was solid, the need was real. Millions of young people who couldn't afford or access traditional education but still needed skills for the modern workforce. Trade schools were dying. Community colleges were underfunded. Online learning was fragmented and overwhelming. Foster Ed could bridge that gap. You're too emotional about it, Rebecca had said then. Business isn't about saving the world, Claire. It's about making money. But what if it could be both? I sat there until sunrise, surrounded by the ghost of an idea I'd abandoned because someone I loved told me to. My laptop was open, cursor blinking on a blank document. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I had $3,000 left in my checking account. No job, no reputation, no co-founder to charm investors. Any rational person would focus on survival, get a corporate job, rebuild slowly, play it safe. But I wasn't feeling particularly rational. I started typing. Foster Ed. Business Plan 2.0 UO. The Starbucks on 16th Street became my office. $2.75 for a tall coffee bought me 4 hours of Wi-Fi and a place to work that wasn't my empty apartment. I arrived at opening, claimed the corner table with the outlet, and built my company one line of code at a time. You're here every day, the barista, Jamie, observed during week 2. Writing the great American novel? Something like that, I said, not looking up from my screen. The MVP, minimum viable product, took 6 weeks to build. It was ugly, held together with digital duct tape and prayers. But it worked. A simple platform where young adults without traditional credentials could connect with mentors, access skill-building resources, and showcase their abilities to employers who cared more about capability than degrees. I had no money for developers, designers, or marketing. What I had was 18-hour days fueled by spite and instant ramen. Some people exercise to handle anger. I coded. The first user signed up by accident, a kid named Miguel who thought it was a food delivery app. He messaged me, "Yo, this isn't DoorDash, but actually this is kinda cool." My counselor said I should go to college, but I just want to learn coding and get a job. I spent 3 hours on video chat with Miguel, walking him through the platform, taking notes on every confusion, every feature request. He became user Barbrigzoder1, and his feedback shaped everything that came next. "You actually give a shit," he said, surprised. "Most apps just want your data." I did give a shit, maybe too much. Rejection became my daily bread. I pitched Foster Ed to everyone who would listen and many who wouldn't. Accelerators, angel investors, venture capitalists, they all had reasons to say no. The market's too fragmented. Show us traction first. Your background is in B2B, not B2C. Aren't you the one who got fired from Brightmind? That last one stung every time. My professional obituary, following me into every room. 17 rejections. I kept a spreadsheet, color-coded by type of excuse, red for market concerns, blue for team issues, yellow for the ones who mentioned Rebecca. Number 18 was different. "You look like shit," said Diane Chen, managing partner at Rocky's Venture Partners. We were meeting at a coffee shop in Rhino, Denver's arts district. She was 62, silver-haired, and had the kind of direct stare that made you want to confess crimes you hadn't committed. "I'm fine," I lied. "No, you're not. You're running on fumes, probably eating garbage, definitely not sleeping." "I've seen that look before. Hell, I've worn that look before." She leaned back, studying me. "Tell me about Brightmind, the real story." "I'm here to talk about Foster Ed. I've read your deck. The product's solid, but I don't invest in products, I invest in people. And you, Claire Halden, are carrying some heavy shit. So talk." For the first time since October, I told the whole truth. Not the sanitized version I'd practiced for interviews. The ugly, painful, humiliating truth. Diane listened without interrupting, occasionally sipping her black coffee. "She fucked you," Diane said when I finished. "Properly, thoroughly fucked you. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Build Foster Ed, prove her wrong." Wrong answer. She pulled out her phone, showed me a photo of a burned-down building. This was my first company. 1993. My business partner, also my husband at the time, embezzled everything and torched the place for insurance money. I spent 2 years trying to prove him wrong, rebuild out of spite. Know what happened? I shook my head. I rebuilt the same flawed company with the same flawed mindset. Took failure number 2 to realize you can't build something new while you're still architecting revenge. I'm not. Yes, you are. Every line in your pitch deck screams, "Fuck you, Rebecca." Which is fine for motivation but terrible for business. Foster Ed deserves better. Those kids you want to help deserve better. She was right. I hated that she was right. So what do I do? First, you stop living like a refugee, get a part-time job, stabilize your finances. Second, you rebuild Foster Ed not as Rebecca's opposite, but as its own thing. Third, you let me invest $50,000 in exchange for 15% equity and my extremely annoying tendency to tell you hard truths. I stared at her. You're investing? Conditionally. I want to see version 2 of this business plan. The one where you're building towards something, not away from something else. I worked on that plan for 2 weeks, stripping away every decision made from spite. Every feature designed to show Rebecca what she'd missed. What remained was cleaner, stronger, real. Foster Ed wasn't Brightmind's opposite. It was something entirely new. A platform for the forgotten, the dismissed, the ones traditional education left behind. Kids aging out of foster care, former inmates learning to code, single parents needing flexible certification programs, veterans translating military skills to civilian careers. My users weren't Rebecca's privileged students optimizing their Harvard applications. They were Miguel, teaching himself Python between shifts at Target. They were Sarah, a former addict building a graphic design portfolio. They were James, 53, and laid off, proving factory skills could transfer to 3D printing. They were everyone who'd been told their dreams were too niche, too complicated, not worth pursuing. They were me. Diane's check cleared on a Thursday. $50,000, enough to keep building, not enough to waste. "Don't fuck this up," she said, handing me the paperwork. "And Claire, stop shopping at Starbucks. Real entrepreneurs work from the library. It's free." 2 years, 730 days of grinding, pivoting, and clawing my way back from the abyss. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning in September. Annual Rocky Mountain Education Innovation Summit, the header proclaimed in elegant serif font. My name was listed among the featured speakers for the afternoon panel, Disrupting Traditional Pathways, Alternative Education Models. 3 names down from mine, Rebecca Quinn, CEO, Bright Mind Innovations. My assistant Marcus watched my face carefully as I read it. "You don't have to do this," he said. "I can decline." "We're going." My voice was steadier than my hands. "Book the whole team a table, front row." Fostered had grown beyond my wildest projections. 23 employees, most of them hired from our own user base. Our platform served 45,000 active users across 16 states. Last month's Series A had valued us at $3.2 million. Conservative by Silicon Valley standards, but built on real revenue, real impact, real lives changed. I'd stopped checking Rebecca's LinkedIn sometime around our first 1,000 users. Stopped caring what Brightmind was doing when we helped our first formerly incarcerated student land a programming job at Microsoft. The anger had faded to scar tissue, present but no longer bleeding. Or so I thought until I saw her name on that agenda. The morning of the summit, I stood in my walk-in closet. Yes, I had one again, choosing armor. The black Armani suit I'd bought with my first real salary in 2 years. The shoes that added 3 inches to my height. The watch that cost more than my old monthly rent. "You look like a CEO," Marcus said when I arrived at the office. "I am a CEO," I reminded him, and myself. The hotel ballroom was packed with the usual suspects. Venture capitalists hunting for deals, educators looking for solutions, entrepreneurs smelling opportunity. I worked the room like I'd learned to, shaking hands and exchanging cards. Foster Ed's origin story now polished to a shine that revealed nothing of the darkness it was born from. Then I saw her. Rebecca stood near the stage, surrounded by her usual court of admirers. She looked exactly the same. Blonde hair in that practiced wave, green dress that probably cost more than most teachers' monthly salaries, laugh that carried across crowded rooms. Our eyes met. For a moment, the room telescoped down to just us. 2 women who'd once shared everything, now separated by a chasm of betrayal and parallel success. She started toward me, then stopped. I did the same. We stood frozen, 20 feet apart as the conference swirled around us. The moderator saved us. "Speakers for the Alternative Education panel, please join us backstage." I took my seat on the panel. Rebecca 2 chairs down, close enough to smell her perfume, the same Tom Ford she'd worn since college, close enough to see her hands shake slightly as she adjusted her microphone. "Let's start with you, Ms. Quinn," the moderator began. "Brightmind has become synonymous with educational innovation. Tell us about your journey." I listened to her tell our story with the pronouns changed. "I started Brightmind in my dorm room. I knew technology could transform education. I built something from nothing. The audience ate it up. They always did." "Ms. Halden," the moderator turned to me. "Foster Ed takes a radically different approach. What inspired you to focus on non-traditional learners?" This was my moment. I could expose her, tell the real story, burn it all down in front of 500 influential people. The old Claire, the one who'd drafted angry emails at 3 a.m., would have. Instead, I leaned into the microphone. "I believe everyone deserves a second chance at success. Sometimes our biggest failures teach us where the real opportunities lie. I talked about Miguel, who now worked at Apple, about Sarah, whose design studio just landed a Nike contract, about the foster kids and veterans and single parents who'd been told they didn't fit the mold. So, we broke the mold. Traditional education serves many people well, I said, not looking at Rebecca. But for those it doesn't serve, we need alternatives. Foster ed exists because I learned firsthand that sometimes the traditional path isn't just wrong for you, sometimes it actively works against you. That's fascinating, the moderator said. Rebecca, how do you see Brightmind and foster ed coexisting in the education space? I watched her squirm. She hadn't expected this, hadn't prepared for a world where I existed as her equal. I think there's room for multiple approaches, she managed. Though I believe traditional education remains the gold standard. Is it, though? I interrupted, surprising myself. When 40% of college graduates are underemployed, when student debt exceeds $1.7 trillion, when brilliant kids are excluded because they don't test well or can't afford the entry fee, maybe it's time to question what gold standard really means. The audience murmured. A few people clapped. Rebecca's face flushed. That's easy to say when you're serving a niche market. 45,000 users isn't niche. It's a movement. I turned to face her directly for the first time in 2 years. But then, you always did think small when it came to serving people who didn't look like us. The moderator sensed blood in the water and quickly moved to the next question. But the damage was done. Rebecca spent the rest of the panel defensive, reactive, while I spoke with the confidence of someone who'd built something real from nothing but spite and code. When it ended, the applause was thunderous. A line formed at my side of the stage. Investors, educators, potential partners all wanting to learn more about foster ed. Rebecca slipped away during the commotion, but not before our eyes met one last time. I saw it then. The recognition. She knew what I'd built. More importantly, she knew why I'd built it. Ms. Halden, a reporter from TechCrunch appeared at my elbow. Could I ask you about the rumors that foster ed is in acquisition talks with several major education companies? I smiled. We're always exploring strategic partnerships, but foster ed's mission is too important to compromise. We're building this for the long haul. From across the room, I caught Rebecca watching. Let her watch. Let her see what grew from the ashes of what she burned. The best revenge, I'd learned, wasn't served cold, it was served at scale. The cocktail reception after the panel was a study in strategic positioning. Rebecca held court by the bar while I worked the opposite side of the room, our respective orbits never intersecting. Until she appeared at my elbow during a lull in conversations. We need to talk, she said quietly. I took a slow sip of champagne. I don't think we do. Claire, please. 5 minutes. Something in her voice, a crack in the polished veneer, made me nod toward the terrace. We stepped into the cool Denver evening, city lights glittering below us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. You hate me, she finally said. I did. The past tense surprised us both. For a long time, I hated you more than I thought possible. And now? I considered the question. Now I nothing you, Rebecca. You're just someone I used to know. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. You're right, you don't. But I need you to know it wasn't supposed to happen like that. The board pressured me, said it was you or both of us. I thought I was saving the company. You thought you were saving yourself. I turned to face her fully. And you did. Congratulations. I've regretted it every day since. No, you haven't. You've regretted that people found out, that some investors asked questions, that your origin story has holes in it, but you don't regret the choice. She opened her mouth to protest, then closed it. We both knew I was right. I heard about the acquisition offer, she said instead. EdTech Global wants to buy Foster Ed, among others. Are you going to take it? Why do you care? Because... She struggled for words, Because if you sell to them, they'll merge you with Brightmind. We'll be under the same umbrella, working together again. I laughed, a real laugh, not bitter or forced. Rebecca, I built foster ed for kids who've been dismissed and discarded, kids who were told they don't matter. I built it for everyone who's been betrayed by someone they trusted. You think I'd hand that over to you? It's a lot of money, 8 figures, I heard. Everything's not about money. You taught me that, just not the way you intended. A conference organizer appeared in the doorway. Ms. Halden, the mayor would like to meet you. She's very interested in foster ed's workforce development programs. I nodded, then turned back to Rebecca one last time. You know what the difference is between us? You built Brightmind to prove you belonged in rooms like this. I built foster ed to make sure kids who'll never see rooms like this still have a shot at success. Claire, we're done here. I walked away, leaving her alone on the terrace. No dramatic exit, no slamming doors, just the quiet conclusion of a story that had already ended 2 years ago. Inside, the mayor was warm and engaged, excited about partnering with foster ed for Denver's Youth Employment Initiative. We talked for 20 minutes about impact metrics and community reach. When I glanced back at the terrace, Rebecca was gone. My team surrounded me as the evening wound down, faces bright with the high of recognition and possibility. Marcus pulled up his phone, showing me the Twitter buzz from the panel. You're trending, he grinned. Education disruption, and look. Miguel tweeted. I read the message from our first user. Watching my CEO destroy on stage. 2 years ago, I thought I'd be working minimum wage forever. Now I'm teaching kids to code. Foster ed changed my life. At Claire Halden is the real deal. You okay? Marcus asked, probably seeing more emotion on my face than I'd intended. Yeah, I said, meaning it. I'm good. The next morning, I sat in my office, my real office, not a Starbucks corner, and drafted a response to EdTech Global's acquisition offer. Thank you for your interest in foster ed. After careful consideration, we've decided to remain independent. Our mission is too important to compromise, and our users deserve leadership that understands their journey. We're not for sale. I hit send, then pulled up our user dashboard. 47,000 active users as of this morning. By year end, we'd cross 100,000. Each one a life touched, a path altered, a second chance seized. My phone buzzed. A LinkedIn notification. Rebecca had shared an article about the conference with a comment, honored to share the stage with innovative leaders disrupting education. The future is bright for all learners. No mention of our history. No acknowledgement of what she'd done. Classic Rebecca, rewriting history in real time. I closed LinkedIn and opened our latest feature development. We were building a mentorship matching algorithm, connecting experienced professionals with emerging talent, the kind of guidance I'd wished for in my darkest moments, the kind of support that might have changed everything. But then again, maybe not. Maybe I needed to be broken to understand how to build something unbreakable. Diane was right. You can't build something new while architecting revenge, but it turns out you can build something powerful from the ashes of betrayal. You just have to be willing to let the fire burn everything down first, then choose what to forge from what remains. I don't need to forgive Rebecca to move forward, I just need to remember. Remember that some losses are necessary to find yourself. Remember that the best revenge isn't proving them wrong, it's proving yourself right. She fired me from her dream. I'm living in mine. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your own thoughts. Have you ever turned betrayal into triumph? I'd love to hear about it. Until next time, remember, sometimes the best revenge is a life well lived.